Chiefs have a top 10 pick for the first time since they drafted Patrick Mahomes. We're going to talk about some of the guys that could be available today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
And welcome back to another episode of Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you all for making us your first listen. And go check out another Locked On show, whether it's Locked On NFL, Locked On NFL Draft. Lots of different things going on in the NFL today. Lots of different cuts. We're going to be getting into that on the show with Matt a little bit later. But we will be talking about the top 10 draft picks that the Chiefs could possibly go with. And this is the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the United States. So thank you all for making us that. And you everydayers are the reason why we're there. Go check out lockedonchiefs.supercast.com to learn more about our Everydayer Club, where you can get ad-free audio and you can get access to our Discord server and talk to Ryan and I directly, talk to some other NFL fans as well. Lots of stuff going on. And let's just dive in right now talking about this NFL draft, because you're in a situation now where you have your highest pick since you drafted Eric Fisher in 2013. This is even higher than they would have drafted Patrick Mahomes, because they traded up to go get him at number 10. What are you seeing from the top 10 talents and this class that's really sticking out to you?
The fact is that there are good prospects, even some blue chips at some of the big positions. But the elite of this class, the blue chips, the ocean blue chips, are not positions of value traditionally. They are Jeremiyah Love and Sonny Styles. They are Arvell Reese, who is going to have to go through a position change. Those three guys at the top of the draft are not generally what the NFL puts its top picks into, because it's not as clear-cut a situation. Running backs and linebackers are the two that tend to get wore down maybe the most in this league. So investing in them early is a little bit difficult. Anytime you're trying to project a position change, that makes things more difficult. So that's the hard part. And I think Brett Veach tried to address that last week while he was at the Combine and talked about having to kind of juxtapose the fact that they're that elite scores. And I have first-round grades on Jeremiyah Love and Sonny Styles, and not being able to justify the value for how they're going to fit in the scheme, or what has been traditional value in the draft scheme itself, because they're not at one of the top four or as we've discussed, maybe 5 top positions now.
So it's interesting to me, and I just thought about this, so sorry, I may be putting you on the spot, but it's interesting to me to think about this. I agree with you. Jeremiyah Love, Sonny Styles, they're not traditionally going to fit what you look at those major positions that you want to hit. Like, that is where you want to go. That's what you want to do. I get all that, and I have no problem with it. My issue, though, and I'm just sitting here thinking about this, is, and Caleb Downs is another one, and there's some medical concerns about Caleb Downs, but I bring him up specifically because if you have to be in a situation where Sonny Styles is for some reason still sitting there at 9, and you can't get a valuable, you can't get a decent trade back offer, I think you still have to take him. And the thing that he does that's a little bit different, that could change the way the Chiefs have played defense traditionally under Steve Spagnuolo, is he may eliminate the use of 3 safety sets because of all the different things he can do that will add to his availability on the field, and things he can do that other linebackers of the Chiefs have had simply can't.
Yeah, I mean, he would be the best athlete that Steve Spagnuolo has had at the linebacker position, and I am not discounting how good Willie Gay was. When I look at the scores that Sonny Styles put up, he's a better athlete than Willie Gay was. And Willie Gay was the top of his class coming out and was put into this defense. And there's one thing about being an athlete, and there's another thing about playing the role within the defense. And obviously Willie did well, but he didn't do elite, right? That's why they allowed him to leave in free agency. Nick Bolton's never been close to that kind of athlete. Leo Chenal's very good, but he's a forward downhill player. He's never been that good playing backward. Drew Tranquill was a safety, and even he's not as good as an athlete coming out when he was in college as Sonny Styles is. So it is very, very rare that you get to a position where you can instantly make a rookie your best weapon at a position group.
Yeah, well, and the crazy thing to me is when you think about it, though, and the reason I bring it up is because the Chiefs are so deficient at so many different positions. I'm not saying that this fixes the safety issue because it doesn't, but it makes it a little bit easier to solve, in my opinion, if they can get a guy that can come in and basically take away some of the stuff that you've struggled taking away in the running backs out of the backfield and the tight ends, because you can use him in that scenario and have him guard them. It may take a year or two for him to develop into what you really want in that sense, but it gets you going in a direction to make it a little bit easier and gives you a athlete that you can build around, and somebody that could be here long term for you and play well past his 5 years on his first year deal, rookie deal.
And if you're going to be stuck in taking a position that isn't necessarily always valued that way, having that 5th year does make a big difference. It's just finding that fit.
Yep. And when we get back, we're going to talk about some other players that could be available for the Chiefs at pick number 9 right after this. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. March is the time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships and families, and in all the unforeseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being, and honestly, that goes for all of us. I think about my mom and how much she carries without always saying so, and it makes me think how many of us are doing the same thing. The roles we play, the expectations we carry, the pressure we don't always talk about. Therapy can help with all of that. Creating balance, setting healthy boundaries, and supporting your overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/lockedon.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
So when we dive back into this class, obviously Sonny Styles is a guy that is not going to fit the mold of being the ones that we normally talk about, the DNs, the pass rushers, the wide receivers and whatnot. I'm going to dive into a position that you and I have talked about plenty, that just the positional value isn't there, but our friend Seth Kaiser had an interesting article about Jeremiyah Love, and he is going to be a guy that could possibly be there at 9, although he may have run himself out of that at the combine.
Maybe. He very well may have. He is certainly by far the only blue chip running back in this class. There is no question. There's nobody else. There are guys that put together and have some attributes. Mike Washington has better overall speed, to tell you the truth, the running back from Arkansas. There are other guys that put together a little bit more experience catching the ball, guys that have better pass protection, but nobody has the full package. Jeremiyah Love did. I take exception with our old friend. Never take Jamal Charles' name in vain ever again.
Right?
But he is a unique specimen, not just for himself, but for this particular type of class where there's just one. So if you feel that, and as the Chiefs do, that it is an important piece to the structure of what this offense is going to be going forward, it makes it a little bit more valuable than it would have been in another year. Now, I am still not of the thought that it's worth it at this point when there are other things to accomplish, just because of the share of the touches that a running back in this offense gets, right? Even when it's more, even if it goes up and you're running as a primary back, right? Which if you draft a running back at 9, let's be real, Brashard Smith is not getting carries. Brashard Smith is your third down back, and that is it. Because if you spend that kind of draft capital, he has to be a bell cow. And that's part of the equation of how you determine whether this is actually worth doing or not for Kansas City and for Brett Veach.
And I'm not trying to justify them taking him at 9, but my point with all of this is he is going to be the number 1 running back on everybody's board. And there's a decent possibility that he's not even available when the Chiefs pick at 9. And in some ways, that would help Kansas City, to be quite honest, because it pushes another player down. But it's also one of those guys that, as you mentioned, you have 2 or 3 really blue chip prospects that you would normally have in this draft, and they're not the normal positions that you're looking for blue chip prospects at. And that is going to affect what the Chiefs are going to be able to do. And you have to wonder how it's going to affect everything else in this draft.
It is. And it's a trickle down effect, to tell you the truth, because once those 3 go, it starts to differentiate. Every board becomes more different quicker after the top 3-4 picks in this draft. And that's teams that right now, even today, as releases are happening, some of those needs are changing rather dramatically. So there's still a lot to go, not only in free agency, but in everything else that happens about what those top picks are going to be and who's willing to make those investments in the Super Blues, even if they're not the traditional 4 pillars of football.
Yeah. Well, and again, you and I have had this argument. I think it's now up to a 5-pillar system just because of the cost of wide receivers. But another interesting thing, and this is the last one I want to talk about really quick. It's possible, there are reports going out right now that the Rams are looking to acquire a very, very high caliber secondary player. What do you see if it's possible that the Chiefs end up trading Trent McDuffie to replace him in this draft?
There are options. None of them are clean. Answer Delane would probably be the odds-on favorite to be the top corner taken, and should be available at 9. I don't think he's good enough to be really thought of going ahead of that, which makes me a little bit nervous of putting him in that position. I have him as a teens type selection. If the Chiefs traded back, I think that would be smart. Gerard McCoy is the guy that fits Steve Spagnuolo. He's long, he's aggressive, he's a press man guy. You got to feel like you can leave him on a corner. Except he had an ACL and didn't play a lick last year, the year before he came out. And more importantly to me, after 13 months of recovery, opted out of competing at the Combine and is just going to take a cush ride at the Tennessee Pro Day. So that puts some question marks on my board of whether he's somebody that I'd select with round 1.
So it's possible. I think the Rams have 13 and 29 is, I believe, what their picks are. Obviously, I'm not going to speculate if the Chiefs are actually going to make that move, but I just wanted to bring it up because it is something that a lot of people are talking about right now. And that is a position that if you trade Trent McDuffie, especially before free agency, you're going to need to figure something out. And maybe that helps you get something figured out with Jalen Watson so you can keep him long-term. At least you have one of those guys. Then you feel like you have a complement of a couple of corners that you could go into the season with, so you're not stuck taking a corner at whatever pick you get from the Rams or at 9. Maybe you make an adjustment and get somebody else a little bit later. So lots of different ways it could go. The problem, though, is in this draft, as we've been talking about it, there just isn't top talent. So having a higher pick in this draft normally would seem like a great thing. Not so much this year.
No. And that's the minefield that Brett Veach has to negotiate and navigate. And we'll talk more about Trent McDuffie and the demand and the need and the possibilities on the main show. So make sure you go check that out too.
That's going to be it for us today. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back with another short, quick episode tomorrow to talk more draft picks and more draft prospects. That's coming up tomorrow.